at all.
Do you want to change the table since we'll get some too?
Do we need to add a table to make it bigger?
Good, otherwise the name code can
Oh,
be right there. Sure. Okay, I'll add one if we get more. Name code.
All right, well, good afternoon. Appreciate y'all coming down and getting lost and running into locked doors and all that stuff. My name is Jesse Ross. I'm going to talk for a very short amount of time, but Macy and I were talking when she first came, and basically, for those of y'all who haven't been here, Connex is a alumni network, talent development network for you all. And so, what does that mean, you all? Everywhere from high school folks to college students to recent graduates to just other professionals who are trying to figure out how do we build connections, how do we navigate. There's a shift that's going through that y'all don't know about, but I'll just kind of briefly say it started as kind of its own entity from the Minneapolis Foundation, which is why we're meeting here, and now we're moving to greater MSP. This is going to be a great thing, staffing, more firepower, that whole deal in conjunction with makme.
So it's like big conglomerate?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. That's the most I'm going to give you because everything else might just be too much information.
Okay.
But one of the things that we started doing, we were meeting with some of the young people, Jasmine and Brandon particularly, like, hey, what do you want to do? How do we figure out how to get you connected? And instead of like, oh, I'm in these events at these different places, it was like, we just want to build connections with other young professionals. So we decided to start having different professionals come in, talk about their journey, talk about the things that they encounter, whether it's like being a person of color, being the only woman, the career journey that we all feel like is a ladder, but it's really not, all of those different things. And then we wanted to figure out how we could get partners to also provide professional development sessions like this one. So Jasmine, I've gotten to know over the last, year and a half. Super cool. Precious was supposed to also be here, but she had a conflict, so bad that you miss her, but you're in good hands, I promise you. So I'm gonna let Jasmine introduce herself. She's from Urban Scholars, and I'm gonna let you do your own introduction.
Got it, thank you. So yes, like you said, my name is Jasmine Logan. I work for the Urban Scholars program. You'll see our logo and kind of our branding throughout. The cool thing is I also was an Urban Scholar for 4 summers, along with Frida and Dimco, so that's cool to see some alumni here as well. Today we're going to be talking about kind of the first phase of customizing your personal brand, what that looks like, why it's important, and kind of what it says about you in different professional spheres, academic settings, whatever they may be, kind of what your brand is right now and what you want it to be and how you get to that point. So that's kind of what we're going over. Like I said, you'll see branding for Urban Scholars throughout because this is content that we kind of customize and own now, so that's where that comes from. Our program is a 12-week internship program throughout the summer. If you want to know more about that, like I said, there's some alumni here. I'll also be here for a little bit after to talk about that because it's a great program. Obviously, I'm biased, but
One thing I definitely forgot that has nothing to do with customizing your brand. But in case when you're talking about your brand, you realize like y'all gotta go to the bathroom. There's a bathroom right around the corner. Like you just go straight down this hallway. You're running there, and then we will have some food towards the end. Sorry, I just forgot.
So, given the smaller group today, it's kind of nice. This is going to be a pretty interactive session. There's a lot of stuff that requires you to be a little more introspective and take time to yourself to kind of go over your values and whatnot. So it's nice that we have a smaller group to allow for that personal time, but also for some small group work. You should all have worksheets in front of you. Let me know if you don't, and you can get one of those too. I'll kind of walk you along as we go through. If you have questions, you can stop me anytime. This doesn't have to be super formal. I want it to be as kind of structured as you want or as lax as you want. So, are we good to get started? Okay, so thinking about branding. Do we all know who this is? Does anyone not know who this is? This is Kanye West. So I do not have this slide up here right now to talk about whether we like Kanye, whether we don't. We can all choose how we want to be. That being said, what are some things about his brand? If you had to have a few words in mind when talking about his brand, whether now or in the past, what would those words be?
Yeezy.
Yeezy. That's legitimately his brand.
Fashion designer, I think.
Fashion.
It's crazy.
Crazy. What other words come to mind?
Kim Kardashian.
North, south, east, west.
So kids, family, kind of, I guess, with that, like
What's
maybe
an
public
artist?
eye.
It's an artist.
An artist, yeah. Any other things about his brand?
A lot of people talk about him after his mom died, before and after his art.
So kind of a pivotal life point, how he was before, how he is after. Do you think he is somebody whose brand has been strategized? He has a strategic brand, again,
Of course.
now or before? Why do you say of course? Or how do you see that?
No, I see that as because turning point, a point where he's actually selling something, he's actually reinventing himself. Yeah, like he was, let's say, like a political brand. It was all liberal, and then when we had to change the president, it changed as well. And then so that kind of brand, I think, keep him in the news. I don't know. So that's what I'm saying. Like he's always like trying to be out there so that you know what he's doing.
Yeah. And so Daniel gets at a good point, which we're going to start getting into. So how do brands change, and then how do they kind of work as a point of relevancy for a person? So thank you for bringing that up. So moving into branding, why is it important to develop a brand?
What's your image?
Image, other thing, like you kind of mentioned relevancy,
Yeah.
kind of promoting where you're at in your life right now.
And as a black man, I'm glad you are talking about this topic because I was also lucky to have that topic in school, and actually I kind of create my own brand. It's also like knowing perception, knowing what. So usually I want to say, like, when you go somewhere, what do you want people to remember about you?
Yeah.
So when I go somewhere, I usually think already about what are they going to remember about me.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly why it's kind of important to have a brand. So it lets people know what you're about. If someone hears my name, my hope is that they know a little bit about what I'd be bringing to that. Okay, so another thing is it sets you apart. So, maybe in this room, me, Frida, and Nimco are all urban scholars. What makes us different, and what do we bring? Where are our skills different at, despite all kind of having this common experience. And then lastly, it's a way to sell yourself. So again, it kind of ties into those other points, but it's really what makes you unique and what separates you out from the pack, and then what are your selling points. So what is a personal brand? So I've heard it kind of mixed up between a few of what you've been saying. So it's your professional reputation at the end of the day. So think of your brand as like your personal mission statement. Companies have mission statements, organizations, even colleges and universities. Everyone kind of has their mission, even vision statements that they present about what they're about, what they do, and why they do it. It's your job or career goal. So your personal brand, it may change as you advance in your career, as you advance in your life, but it kind of talks and points to your different goals in those transitions. It is your unique differentiator. So again, just what sets you apart from the rest. What is something that you bring that you're strong with? It could even be stuff that, okay, I'm strong here, but I want to be better, and highlighting those things that might set you apart for a job. And then your reason to be hired again. So just kind of what are you really bringing? What value add do you have? Not to say that no one else does, but in that moment, what are you bringing and what vision do you have for the organization, for the company that they want? Does anyone need more time to fill out their sheets? And I can always go back to things. So we're just kind of go over where this came from. So it came from a book on personal branding strategies as a 3-step process. Today we're going over the first process, like I said, extracting your brand, unearthing your brand. So like I said, this is kind of an introspective session, a lot of kind of self-reflection about how your values add to this, how your personal passions and missions go into it. So we're going to cover knowing yourself, knowing your competitors, knowing and understanding your target, so kind of like who are you trying to be with, what are you trying to do with them, and then actually creating your personal brand profile. So, knowing yourself. So, I'm going to have you kind of go over this step by step. You should be able to follow along. It's page 3 in your worksheets. So, knowing yourself. What are 3 words that your friends would use to describe you? And take a minute or 2 to kind of jot some things down. These can change as we go throughout the session, but right now, what are 3 things you think of that your friends think of you, and how they would describe you? To the next bullet, still be working on this if you need more time, and then at the end I'll give a few minutes just to wrap everything up. So now, what are 3 words that an advisor would use to describe you? An advisor can be, it doesn't have to be, I think we think about like college advisors a lot or school advisors, but this can be like a professor, a teacher, somebody that kind of maybe might advise you on work decisions. It doesn't have to be like that formal school type of advisor, but somebody who has a close connection to your work and your processes and whatnot. And then 3 words your boss would use to describe you. Again, if you want to think of it in the context, maybe a supervisor or somebody, again, who has kind of close insight on the work you do, whether that's school or professional or personal work, kind of up to you how you want to see the boss figure. Lastly, 3 words a mentor would use to describe you. Again, this is open to kind of your interpretation of what that looks like in your life. It can be a friend, a colleague. Some people talk about spiritual leaders in their community, family members. So somebody you consider to be a kind of mentor figure. Another minute or so to just wrap up this page before we move on. Okay, seems like people are wrapped up, so we'll move on to the next part. Again, if you need more time, there'll be a lot of time at the end as we construct the full kind of profile. The last one is, you can do it. It says Urban Scholars Colleagues. Again, this is kind of our content, but if you want to talk about just colleagues in general, how they would describe you, that would work too. Again, open to interpretation, kind of where you're at in your professional life, but general colleagues or friends, talking about that. does anyone want to share, you can be from any category, but just some general words that you thought people might use to describe you as? Again, from any category, you don't have to share all of them.
I can say my friends. Motivated, energetic, and inspirational.
Okay. Anyone else want to share a few?
I will share my friends who would be like passionate, smart and curious, and also ambitious.
I said my colleagues would describe you as outgoing, passionate, and inclusive.
Maybe one more person.
I was going to say, so here with my supervisor would describe me as excellent, detailed, and communicative.
Did you want to share too? Or?
No, I think, yes, with my mentor, diligent, understanding, and giver.
Great. Okay, so now kind of moving into the next part of your worksheet, kind of start thinking about what are your values. So just as a person, this can be stuff that is only in your personal life or professional, but oftentimes values kind of go into all of the realms of our life. So what are those kind of core values that you hold that drive you to do your work or drive you to work on certain projects or be in community with certain people? What are those values? And then also think, what are you passionate about within that? So again, what drives you to do what you're doing? And what's that underlying foundation there? And then why is your purpose what it is? Or kind of maybe start with what is my purpose and then why is it that? So again, what's driving you? And then what is unique about you? What makes you stand out? What makes you feel confident? What really what sets you apart when thinking about people that you might be in community with? And I'll give you a few minutes to reflect and do that. I forgot to say, feel free to move around the room. I know some people like to kind of work really by themselves and stuff, so feel free to move if you need to.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm Hannah. Hannah, nice to meet you. This Gabby, she's doing the presentation next year.
So this is the handout that we're looking at. If you want to go back for a few minutes, we're starting to kind of build up like where our brand might be right now. Through how other people perceive it. So, and everyone has a few minutes to work time. So, you can sit really like so here.
Also, yeah, there's So as people are still kind of working or wrapping up,
maybe at your tables in smaller groups, and this kind of group of 3 can be a group as well. If you want to kind of take a few minutes to share with each other, what are some things you came up with those questions? I know sharing your values and whatnot can be personal sometimes, so don't feel like you have to, but just do a little bit of dialogue around what you came up with in this section.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 things that
Oh, okay. So I was thinking about my values and stuff because I think that like having it with Wilder and stuff. I really value being a different person, especially because of the office that I work in and diversity and opportunity. So like some of my values are like justice, equity, authenticity, and like relationships. So just like building, like maintaining and having those relationships. And then in a high purpose, like as I've developed from equal opportunity officer, like still doing compliance work, but like being better now as well, is like connecting people. So I'm call like that's what purpose is connecting folks, making the state more accessible to people who like are intimidated by the state or like don't know how to even connect with the state.
Like the state
and you are not happy sometimes,
and happiness for me now.
So it's really like trying to be
happiness for me is tied to like
the state is like
what's going on in
and stuff that
now. When I was coming here, I was frustrated because of my representation on the road, like a really so I got here now, I know I've changed. Yeah, I like what I'm doing, and so it's all that experience. So yeah, and what about passionate about?
I think it has been amplified, and if they've changed, it's maybe just like the order that they've changed. I don't think that they've all necessarily changed. Like just the order of some things definitely come out more than like other options, and I think it's just probably like
my passion also.
yeah. I mean, I haven't done like the values stuff.
So also my purpose is like and help those around me live happy as well and prosper. In the sense that
exactly.
I take myself to church because of what is unique about me
graduating from
as
St.
well, because I
2017,
was young enough
and I stayed on. So after staying
I want
on,
to continue to do that. I want to be first
a position, like there was a position open, and I applied for it in 2018, so I was potentially
motivation that was really kind of my target.
so yeah, so then I went to school full time.
So yeah, I went to school in South Africa and school that Nelson Mandela came when they went to
Finally, I'm done. Finally graduated.
So my circumstance exposed me to different things. They let me for experience and was whatever it was. But that experience exposed me to the world and from the culture. And my wife is white. And like all the passion that everything that we do and have different cause. I know why they lie about the things, even in terms of one side of my family different
like my boss does. I don't think I could say so. But like, you know, I ask my boss to do things like this, especially like free stuff because my office is a little boring right now. So especially like free stuff my boss lets me go to. So if I find things, excuse me. Oh my gosh. If I find things, I can definitely like depends on my house. If they're not too expensive, then I can go. But so as a whole, stuff goes on when it comes to individual, like with my job and stuff.
I've done it like I'm still
I need to find the one something.
I like that.
Really give up.
Kind of
Where are you? So I it's gonna I care about people.
The way I'm thinking right now is to
That's what it gives you
build that foundation for them to have.
Right.
My parents have struggled.
Like you said, like
So did your savings credits transfer easy? Oh, good. Okay. So you didn't need to do an extra year or anything?
Maybe just take another minute to wrap up your conversations and we'll do a large group.
my values are what are you doing?
I don't really think about myself. I think about other people.
Equity, integrity.
So I think about others and how
Like now that we've been there, it's like now I see everybody everywhere. It was so funny the other day. I was at a waffle shop and I was wearing my t-shirt, and you know my grades 11 t-shirt had the St. John's Abbey and then the Maine on it, and then someone comes up to me and was like, "Oh, are you a Benny?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, "Oh, I'm a Johnny and I'm a Benny. I went there and I recognized from your shirt." Oh great, you know what class did you graduate from? It's so funny, but it was cool. So yeah, no, seriously.
I think it's interesting to what's the unique question.
positive mental attitude.
A lot of people have those values, and a lot of people have that greater I'm definitely one of those people who holds.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up and bring it back to the large group. I just saw the best conversation happening, so I just wanted to hear it out. Sorry to like invade, but that was a really good kind of moment. Who wants to share out whether it's something you heard from someone that resonated with you or something that you want to share with the group before we kind of move into these next questions?
I can share. So starting with one, what are the things that I value? I value peace and love and kindness, boundaries and respect. I do bullet points because it's gets straight to the point. And then passionate about higher education, fitness, empowering women, and then arts, and then purpose to change the lives of people, develop other leaders. And then what is unique about me? Jack of all trades, lifelong learner, team player.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? You look like you want to share, but I don't want to put you on the spot.
Okay, so, well, would you like to share, bro?
Sure, yeah. So some of my values are growth and competition. And for growth, I think everything starts with the mind. So if you have a strong mind, you'll have a strong life. If you have a strong mind, you'll have a strong body. And so everything, the core is the mind. And what I'm passionate about is leadership. And how I define that is being of service to others. And so it's empowering others or being a giver. So just helping them out and potentially leading them. What is why is my purpose? I said to be of value, to create a legacy. What is unique about me? At first I had growth mindset because I wasn't really sure. But then I changed it to a positive mental attitude.
And I want to say, if you don't mind, if I could just add kind of what I saw happen in this interaction, which kind of goes into branding. So after he expressed kind of like different values and whatnot that he had, his partner, and was kind of struggling, okay, what's unique about me? His partner said, well, based on what you expressed and what I see you demonstrating, I think this is unique about you. And that kind of goes into why we're doing this in the first place. What do other people perceive? Sometimes it's really hard to think about, what do I have to add, you know, because you're used to doing
Like, who are you competing with?
Who am I competing with?
Actually, that is exactly what we're going to be talking about next. So again, you're always kind of setting up what we're going to talk about, which is great. So I want, because because I want to preface it a little bit how we're going to approach these next couple of questions. So as you'll see on your handout, the next few things are talking about knowing your competitors and knowing your target. So I'm going to give you all a few minutes again to reflect on this personally and then kind of small group again. But why it's important to focus on this. So understanding who are you competing with and what are you competing for, so the target. If that's a job, if that's place on an executive board, whatever that may be. Why that's important to unpack is because it helps you determine how am I going to show up in this situation. So your example was great. So you're a competitive person. You know how that's kind of said out loud and how that might be out front. It might be perceived in a different way, so you adapted it to you value fairness, you value equity and equality. And that's a way, it still gets at your passion and your values, but it's packaged in a way that it's perceived consistently across the board, right? Yeah. So that when you say that to me, I know what it means, just like she will, everything. So that it's not like, oh, he's competitive. That's kind of off, but we now know he means by that he wants a fair process, an equal process, right? So having that understanding is key. So for example, last year I graduated college in 2018. I'm another post-grad person looking for a job. What sets me apart? What makes me different from the person I graduated next to? Those are my competitors. So it can have that negative connotation. When we think of competing, we think of like, I have to be on top and you have to be on bottom. And that's not how it has to be. We're going towards different things. So knowing your competitors helps you know what do I need to bring out of myself to advance myself forward, as well as knowing your target. So knowing that, okay, if I want to get involved with ConnextMSP, it's helpful for me to know I need to meet Jesse Ross. I need to meet up with Nora. I need to understand their functions within that so I can get a better understanding of the organization, but also a better understanding of who's working there, what they're bringing, what they might be looking for. So another great example I heard this morning before our session started, Macy, right? Mm-hmm. Macy was talking to Jesse, just introducing themselves, and she said, you know what, I'm really interested in your work. And she made this connection, and then at the end of it, she said, can I shadow you? Because she said she saw a connection after he explained kind of what he did, what he was passionate about. She said, I'm interested in that. I'm about your mission, and I want to connect. I want to make that connection. So knowing that target, that was exactly that. I don't know if you knew you were doing that, but that's
I did.
There we go. So that was there we go. And so this is all about bringing out what you already have and what you know about yourself, and being intentional and strategic about it. So that being said, we're going to kind of move into these next part of knowing your competitors and knowing your target. So again, I'm going to give you a few minutes to reflect with yourself and answer the questions. If it's helpful to talk to people around you, that's fine with me as well. Just make sure they're fine with it. But we'll still kind of do what we did before, a little small group breakout and then a large group. Any questions or? 2 minutes to kind of wrap up those, and then we'll start discussing together. Like wrapping up. So again, maybe with a new partner this time, talk about some things that you wrote about in terms of knowing your competitors and knowing your target. It doesn't have to be everything, but take a couple minutes with a new person and talk about that. Or a group of people, that's fine.
So I like in the car, I was like listening to folks. I also have the work that I do up there is alongside 19 kind of as far as how I kind of compete for them. Yeah. So my competition is like I am it's kind of unique. I would say I would like to be personally and then not many people how I stand out. So I feel like my experiences have made me a very authentic person.
Yeah, after these things move,
and then how do I stand out?
So I'm competing with
the knowledge.
Those better schools, they have better experience, they have better connection, they have better network, they have like a separate culture, so that culture is
Get a client on their
See people at the table.
Nobody will care about that. Care about what they want to work on.
And so I think that is the most important thing, and that's where I'm trying to develop, like, how do I want to approach that when I meet my clients or my customers? What do I want to say? What do I want to give? Where do you want to be? Because that matters.
standards, and so
those companies.
I didn't even realize we did those
So
in
we stand out as being like a black man. A black man who's educated.
I need to figure out how I want to do that.
Who's smart. Who is yeah, everywhere. Yeah, that's just my attitude that I want to show that it's but that's why.
Yeah, I do want to calm down a little bit. Like where, obviously I don't have an office yet, and so I know that when I do need to
yeah,
the
so
question is, do I want to
we cannot, that's something that I cannot transfer.
worker's office so that they have a feel like, oh,
yeah,
this is going, this may happen.
After that,
Those
the
kind of
point
get their
where
mindset
I can walk
into
in,
getting started
and
into like home searching or either home selling it. So making sure they're placed in a setting that makes them feel like they can get started and warrant. So that's where I ask myself, do I want to meet my clients at
yeah,
home, or do I want to meet my clients at my office?
I'm not even looking at the
office.
I mean, for the most part,
really depends
no, that I want to work with. I would want to.
how
I want to. I want to work for because I
this
don't
never
have
really reached out to you, like or it can be a family.
You know what I mean?
Usually with families, and then I step up. I'm okay with meeting them at home.
Yeah, I was in school.
Now with
That's how I see it. But I work really hard.
different client,
And then,
we don't know each other.
I used to work in college.
I prefer that in a lot of office because it gives them a feeling that you're really getting this started. Less time. It's more
Even though I'm
professional.
going to, I still,
Let's talk about what you're doing with your idea. And it also gives me the opportunity to showcase
all of it.
my office, the people who I work with. It builds my case that, hey, these are my broker, these are
that's why
introduce themselves to the office, basically. This is who you will be getting if you work with
Resumes are represented.
yeah, this is, these are the resources
Yeah, it's
we
developable,
have.
but you
We
can
live
give
in
an
an
idea.
ideal.
And
I mean, you work in a very professional broker and they
no, because when you go through,
all
you show
the
me your
people who are there to assist you, so we're not to worry about that.
It's represent your privilege. You represent if you are
It
if you want me to
showcases what I can offer.
People will say like I want to stand
So those are like an example setting. I try to.
What does that matter? What does that matter?
I'm thinking about like,
There's
I ask myself, do I,
that
when
just
I
looking
do
for
like have that first time meeting,
like
do I want to present
they don't care
them with a bunch of papers? And sometimes it can be that matter good.
They will be like
Obviously,
I went to a training
we're going to have a one-on-one conversation and just from there set another appointment. So I don't know yet. It's good to have like contracts available, but I try to not have it right there.
I got several brothers. You get a candy.
I don't know. I guess I don't know how I want to approach that yet.
Yeah, like our train spots.
So and usually for customers, it can be an overwhelming process.
I mean, are you shocked?
I'm not shocked, but she was shocked when she was pregnant.
That's so far away. So
But those are your competitors.
Yeah, those are my competitors, every single day. Because why would they leave all these people? They want to
yeah, what do I
come from there?
So how are you going to stand out? I'm
glad to know that there's a value to that.
But I ended up.
Okay, so we want to bring it back to the large group real quick. Just kind of go over things before we actually start building out our profiles to wrap up today. So what are some things you heard from others in terms of what sets them apart and makes them unique? You can share about yourself or what you heard from someone else.
We both agree that we didn't really like competition. We didn't really like competition, only because I feel like all of us bring in different value, and sometimes when other people want to compete with us, it can rub off of us. And I was like, but wait, not competing is our brand. Like that's our brand. Yeah.
And then like just go a little bit deeper about like why I kind of don't compete too is like in what I do in serving folks as an equal opportunity officer and as a diversity recruiter is that when I'm competing for jobs, I'm competing with folks that are just as passionate and dedicated to serving their communities. So in the end, it doesn't matter that I didn't get the position because I know someone just as passionate got it. So I support them. And so that was kind of one of the purposes, connecting it to like what we were talking about earlier, is that I connect folks. And so just being able to see that it was still able to, you know, work out with someone else.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
So I'm going to share mine because it's totally different, so that we have talked about it. So I'm competing with people that went to graduate school. They have MBAs, they have PhDs, they went to better school, they have better experience, they have better network, they have better connections, and also people that their culture may be the dominant culture that is acceptable in the community where I'm working. So I'm competing against all that. All people that have all those backgrounds, and I know that, you know. And yesterday I was at this event organized by the Minneapolis Chamber. Yeah, yesterday there was this question like because we are trying to push some company to outside of recruit students that go to community college that graduate here. So somebody was sharing on the panel was sharing how the net is like a Medtronic. A recruiter the recruiter was asking them like, tell me why would I leave people that are graduating from Stanford, Harvard, MIT, whatever, that want to work for Medtronic and recruit somebody that want to community college here and all this. Tell me why I will do that. Tell me why I will do that. I think that was really striking about the reality, because there's the reality out. There's the reality like when you are screening, like when you are applying for a job, like it's really cold. Like there are some schools you won't even go through. Nobody will see your resume. Like, and that's just the reality. So that's how I'm trying to say like these are the people that I'm competing with, and I could answer the other question. The other question is like what differentiates me? Just like certainly I'm a black man, which could be good or bad depending on where you're applying to, and my education also, my experience as well, and at the end you just have to, if you have a chance, to know how to explain how you're better than all that. So
yeah, so we had the competitors, like knowing who my competitor is, and this for all intents and purposes, treatment centers and recovery programs, and I'll go to explain why. What makes me stand out, because I have firsthand experience with this target audience. Actually, I was a part of the target audience until I began to go through a life transformation myself. So I stay engaged on multiple levels in my growth and development and in my engagement. So my target, and it's funny, my target is the Department of Correction, Probation, Treatment Centers, and Recovery Programs, because of the engagement, because of the policies. You know, we're going through this process of prison reform and the First Step Act, and just knowing where the money's going and who it's not, where it may apply to certain people, but they're not being affected by the resources and opportunities that's opening up for other people, and their end feeds into the social disorder that creates a lot of these systems that we're actually working in the first place. So who are the people in the organization or the companies that I need to know, and what am I about also? So